Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. In this episode, the guest I interview wishes to remain anonymous. He was previously a sheriff in the state of Missouri, and he was trained to observe and identify things. One night while driving on the highway, he saw an unknown creature pick up a dead white-tailed deer from the middle of the highway. It's cool to hear these types of encounters because it really proves that these creatures exist. If you guys enjoy Sasquatch Theory, please like and subscribe, and I want to thank all the people who have supported the channel, and it really means a lot to me. Alright guys, let's dive into our next Bigfoot encounter from the state of Missouri.
So I'm kind of short on time, but I'll be as direct as I can about it, all right?
Okay. Yeah, I won't even do the intro or anything. I'll just let you run through the story, and I'll just listen if that's all right with you.
That's fine with me. So basically this all started about 9 years ago. What happened was I actually live in Lebanon, but my youngest son was born up at Lake of the Ozarks. We got a small hobby farm. I was a deputy sheriff at the time. So I had left the hospital and came back to Lebanon to do evening chores and whatnot. It was about 11 o'clock at night. It was on my son's birthday. It was the day he was born. I was going back to the lake to be with my wife and my son. And about halfway between Camdenton and Lebanon, there's a meteor impact site. And I had noticed on the way in, I'm an avid hunter, fisherman, I've been in these woods my whole life. I'd noticed that somebody had hit a pretty good sized buck, and it was sitting right on the yellow line, right in the center in the center of 5 Highway in that meteor impact site. Didn't think nothing of it. I was on my way back, and I'm pulling up towards where this deer is, and there's something standing in the road. Like, where this deer is just a big black mass. What the heck is this thing? Car coming the other direction. And it's got those real bright HID headlights. And about the time his lights hit it and my lights hit it, we both come to a stop. I kicked the driver's door open and stepped out. 1 foot still in the car, 1 foot on the ground. Still can't figure out what this thing is. Like, what the hell is going on? And the old boy in the other car steps out, and we didn't even speak to each other. Whatever this thing was stood up. And when I tell you it stood up, it stood up. It was huge. 2 legs, 2 arms. It was huge. But it had this pretty good sized buck. I'm going to guess it was at least a 6-point buck in one hand. And it turned, took 1 step and was on the shoulder of the road, took another step and was in the ditch. Right out there on that meteor impact site where they cut the highway through, there's about an 8-foot rock wall. This thing hopped. Just hopped, didn't jump. It just, grabbed the edge of the rock and just kind of tossed itself up there, and off through the grass it went. Old boy in the other car slams the door. He's gone. I jump back in, back into mine, and I take off. Don't say anything to anybody. Don't want a whole bunch of crap about it. Don't want, everybody pointing fingers and laughing. So I'm like, okay, I'm sitting on this. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I talked to my dad about it a couple of days later, because it's my dad. And he said, son, I don't know what to tell you. Okay. Well, we kind of let it go. About a month ago, me and my best friend went fishing down at a place called Tunnel Dam. And the entire time we were down there, his little dog is freaked out, like shaking, and which is very unusual for this dog. And the entire time he had a weird feeling like somebody was watching. Well, I had cut up a little bit of wood for a campfire. We're sitting around a little campfire. taking a break from fishing, and like I said, you just got the feeling somebody was watching. Well, we were supposed to be down there all night, and it just got to the point where it was just things were getting too weird. Like, kept hearing noises off in the woods, but you never could see anything. Shine the spotlight over it, you couldn't see anything. What in the world is going on? I've been fishing down there my whole life. Well, finally, I'm like, all right, let's get out of here. So we loaded up and we jumped in a little pickup. We went to go take off. Turned around on a gravel bar. When turned around on a gravel bar to go up the little path, there was something standing in the road. Like I said, I've been in these woods my entire life. I am the epitome of a hillbilly. I've spent my entire life in these woods. That wasn't a bear. That wasn't a person. If it was a person, it was the biggest human being that I have ever seen in my life. It wasn't a person. Person doesn't move like that. Whatever this thing is, headlights hit it. It doesn't run into the bushes. It doesn't, go back the way it came. This thing turned and ran away from us up this path or up this driveway path deal about 15 yards. And then, I mean, I couldn't even explain to you how this thing disappeared. It just like vanished. And that's when I was like, me and him were talking about it. I'm like, man, I got to get a hold of somebody, let somebody know what's going on. So that's when I found you guys. Now, I will tell you, on the first incident, the one out on 5 Highway, I was deputy sheriff at the time. So when I went back on duty, I started kind of hanging out in that area and talking to some of the older farmers, and whatnot. And the second I would mention something about, have you ever seen anything out here that doesn't just seem right? They'll all clam up. They'll just quit talking. Nope, ain't seen nothing. You have a good day, and then go back to work. Well, I found one guy. There's a commercial hog farm about a half mile from where I seen this thing at. And I went and tried to talk to them. They wouldn't. They really didn't have anything to say to me. But one of the employees there called me outside. He's like, hey, look, I don't know what you're looking for, but there is something weird that does happen. Like, okay, what's that? He's basically, it's a commercial hog farm. Hogs die. When the hogs die, we pull them off to the side of the barn, pull them outside, put them outside, and we deal with them at the end of the shift. I'm like, okay. That's how hog farms work. I understand that. Problem is every once in a while we go out there, hog will be gone. What do you mean? He's like, yeah, you're talking about 400-pound hog is gone. It just disappears. I'm like, that, what do you mean it just disappears? He's like, there's no tracks, there's no footprints, there's no animal tracks, no tire tracks, nothing. It's just gone. You go in and ask, oh, hey, did you guys take care of this? No, you need to go do that. Well, it's gone. And they'll just, okay, well, go do something else then. And the whole thing is just weird. I don't know what this thing is. I'm not even sure it's the same thing, but I've seen it twice now in the course of, 9 years.
So you feel like it's following you around?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think it's just been right place, right time.
Mm. And did you get a good look at the creature whenever you saw it in the middle of the highway? Like, can you describe any features?
It had to been, I'm going to say at least 7'5", 7'6", at least, if not bigger. It was the middle of the night. It was like 11 o'clock, 11:30, something like that. I'm covered in hair from head to toe, but it's just immense. The height isn't even really what struck me. It was the width. This thing, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'1", At the time, I was about 250. And this thing, it was a good 25, 30 yards in front of me. And I was still looking up at it. And it had to have been at least 4 foot wide. And when it turned, and it acted like we weren't even there. It just turned and kind of walked off the side like, I didn't see you, you didn't see me. We're just going about our day. This thing jumped an 8 foot rock wall. I went out and measured it. An 8 foot rock wall with a 200-pound deer in its hand.
Yeah, that's wild.
In one hand.
And like whenever he jumped the wall, you say it's just one swoop, like one jump.
Yeah, it literally reached up and grabbed the edge of the rock and basically just pulled itself up onto the top of the rock wall.
Oh wow!
And off through the field it went. Like it. That from where that deer was, from where we first seen it to that rock wall, is probably 15 yards, and did it in 3 steps.
Did it have a conical shaped head or was it round? Could you tell?
It was just, I'm telling you, it wasn't a bear. It wasn't, it's nothing I've ever seen before. It had shoulders, I can tell you that.
Yeah,
but
I believe you.
I didn't see any sort of a neck feature. I mean, I was a police officer, and at the time, I was deputy sheriff at the time, and I mean, I've been trained to give descriptions of what I see. I cannot describe what exactly it was that I saw. It was big, it was hairy, had 2 legs, 2 arms, and shoulders.
Yeah.
Never saw a face. No, like muscle features or anything like that. I saw fingers and the size.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the second creature, was it about the same?
It was, yeah, but it was lighter colored. The one in the middle of the one out on 5 Highway, it was dark. I mean, dark. The one that we seen, I mean, headlights were shining right on it, and it turned and ran away from it, away from us. It was a lot lighter colored. I mean, a lot lighter colored. And the one that what struck me the weirdest about that one, was when a person runs, being a cop, people run from you. You always see the bottom of their feet. Never seen the bottom of this thing's feet.
Yeah, that is interesting. And
it was at least, I'm going to say that one was at least the same height as the first one, at minimum of 7 foot.
Okay. The first
encounter,
we were in, what date, like what time of year was it?
It was almost 9 years ago to the day. It was November. It would have been November. My boy was born on the 15th, so it would have been November 16th at between 11 and 11:30 at night.
Okay, yeah, that is interesting. That's a good detail to have, because in the summertime around here they're pretty active, and then they kind of go dead around the wintertime.
This was weird, man. I mean, it was dark. I remember it was a full moon, so it was very well lit, but I mean, it was brighter outside, but it was kind of cloudy, but you still see very well.
Yeah, so he was trying to get him an easy meal.
Yeah. Well, the more that I looked around and I asked around, kind of started making sense to me. I mean, dead deer, dead pig, here and there. But it's weird because you don't usually see a lot of deer versus car accidents right there in that area. You hear about them, but you go out there and the deer's never there. It is very, very odd.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can't tell you what the hell this thing is. I really can't. But I've said this many, many times, I'm sure. I grew up in these woods. I know every square inch of the woods out in that area, in both of those two places. I mean, I could tell you exactly what you want to know about any of those places. Like I've been hunting and fishing these areas for 30 plus years, 30 almost 40 years now. Never seen anything like this.
Yeah. I've gotten two different reports. One was from around Columbia, Missouri, where a guy said he saw a Sasquatch eating a dead dog off the side of the highway. And then I got another report from a couple down by Table Rock Lake, and they saw the same thing, a white Sasquatch eating a white dog, or a dog in the middle of the highway, which is strange.
I I'm not gonna say it was Sasquatch. I'm not gonna say it wasn't, but what I'm gonna tell you is what I did see, I've never seen before. And I'll be very honest with you, I never want to see it again.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Whatever the hell this thing is, you can call it whatever you want to, whatever it is, I'm telling you, it was big enough and strong enough, it could have easily tore me in half.
Yeah. And whenever you
Like,
received reports as a sheriff, like normally you'd go out there, take care of it, and then not forget about it, but move on to the next thing. But with
right,
this
right,
encounter, you continued to think about it over and over and over because your mind couldn't find a place for it. Is that right?
right. So I would go, and I actually had my partner with me on a lot of these. You know, it's your job especially in a rural county, it's the job of deputies. You get out and you communicate with farmers and the ranchers and the people out in the county. You know, you, you look for oddities while you're talking to these people. You know, if they've seen things that are out of the ordinary, you get out and do the PR thing. And I use that as a tool to kind of poke around, not really to ask direct questions, but poke around about what I saw. And I'm serious. The second you start to even mention something about it, the conversation's done. They're done talking to you.
Yeah, I've noticed that with
It's
certain
very
people.
odd.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
if
hard to get people to talk about Sasquatch in a Sasquatch area when you know they're around the area because the locals usually know, they just don't want to say anything.
right, this thing is very weird. Um, if you was to pull it up on Google Maps, it's just inside of the Laclede County line on on 5 Highway. If you'll follow back, the easiest way for me to describe the exact location to you is if you get on Google Maps, you start at the county line and work your way back towards Lebanon, and you look at the sides of the road on Google Maps, you'll notice that all the striation in the rocks goes from being level to kicked up at about a 45-degree angle, between a 30 and a 45-degree angle. That's the edge of the meteor impact site. That's where it happened.
Okay, yeah, that is interesting. I wonder if there's like caves and springs in that area.
Oh, all over that place. Both of those two places they're covered in caves, springs. They're covered in sinkholes. The whole area. As a matter of fact, what is the name of that? Pritchett Cave? Yeah, Pritchett Cave is only about a mile and a half from that exact spot. And it's a pretty good sized cave.
Okay, yeah, I see that. There's a lot of forest out there in that particular
Oh
area
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the one where we was fishing at Tunnel Dam, I mean you're probably 8, 9 miles down a gravel road and it turns into a path for about the last two.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at it on the map right now, and Highway 5 runs right through Lake of the
Yeah.
Ozarks, comes down
Yep.
through Camdenton,
Yep.
and
That's
that's the
if
area
you'll go
by Ha Ha
towards
Tonka.
Lebanon. Yep. Well, From the spot where we were fishing at Tunnel Dam, Tonka is by the crow. Well, the way the crow flies, probably 4 or 5 miles at the very. I mean, that would be pushing it. It's probably actually like 3. By road, it's like 15.
Okay.
But yeah, if you ever get down to this area, if you follow Google Maps and you go down to Tunnel Dam, you'll see how rural it is. Now, the one out on 5 Highway, the closest house is probably miles away. Well, no, it's probably a half mile away because the hog farm is about a half mile from there.
Yeah.
And there's a house there.
Did you ever return to the area to look for any evidence where you encountered the creature?
Yeah, the next, 3 days later when I went back to work, I went out there and looked around in the area. Couldn't really see anything. The only thing, now granted, this was several days later, you could tell something big had moved through the grass, but I mean, you couldn't see any. There was no discernible footprints or, hair fibers or anything. There was nothing like that. But you could see where the grass had been parted, where something had went through the grass. Now, that could have been a cow. That could have been whatever that thing was. It could have been a pig. I don't know. But it came from that rock wall where that thing jumped up through the grass.
Yeah,
So
that's terrifying.
And the grass was all laid down going away from the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's something. I know a cow didn't go over that rock wall. The grass would have been laid the other direction.
Yeah, kind of sounds like these creatures are all over Missouri because you'll hear people say like they're only in like the Mark Twain or just the Ozarks, but it sounds like they're everywhere.
After I left the sheriff's department, I worked. Now this is all hearsay, so I mean, take for what it's worth. But after I left the sheriff's office several years later, I went to work on Fort Leonard Wood, cutting grass for the Army. And one of the guys had told me about a lot of stuff that happened to him down along. It would have been the Ruby Doo, what they call Ruby Doo Creek. It's actually a small river, but it runs right through the center of Fort Leonard Wood. Along the Ruby Doo and along the big, it's either the Big Piney or the Little Piney. I can't remember which one's first. But yeah, he told me a lot of stories about stuff that happened down there. But that, like I said, that would be hearsay. And I didn't find out about none of them until well after that one that happened to me on 5 Highway.
Yeah. And did the department know anything about Sasquatch when you were working there? Okay.
No. Because there was no crime, there was no reason for me to write a report on anything. And honestly, I'm going to be very honest with you. I couldn't even have told somebody back then. I couldn't even have told somebody what I saw. I mean, there would be no way to. I mean, that's a career-ending thing right there.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm telling you, there was no property damage. There was nobody hurt. Nothing. There was no incident to report on. So it's best if you just kept your mouth shut.
Do you know where people have had Bigfoot activity around the Fort Leonard Wood area?
I'm going to tell you right now, there's a ton of you. Pretty much everybody down there talks about I've never been to it myself. They say there's a fire tower, a fire watch tower. It's like a public access point. Right? A lot of people talk about that. But I'm going to tell you, for a fact, I know this to be true. I've done it myself. You go poking around out by the cannon ranges and whatnot, the big gun firing ranges, which are surrounded by public land, even here in Laclede County. You can walk for a couple of days without seeing a building. I mean, you're out in the sticks.
Yeah. And makes me wonder what else is out there other than Sasquatch, because you hear all these strange stories surrounding military bases. And,
Right.
Makes you wonder.
Well, the way the crow flies, it'd be from where all my stuff happened. It's a direct line across, but it's on the other side of the county, is what I'm saying. But the stuff that happens out here, the only thing that I did look up that I found, I should say, that I thought was weird. There's a lot of sightings around hydroelectric plants.
Yeah, that is
And
interesting.
that's what Tunnel Dam is.
Mm.
From where I seen the first one 9 years ago to where the one I seen last month, you're talking 15 miles difference, 20 miles difference at the most.
Yeah, that's not too far off.
Yeah, I'm telling you, a 6 foot tall man in good shape can cover about 7 miles in an hour.
Yeah.
Something the size that I saw could cover 7 miles in probably 20, 30 minutes. I mean, this thing literally took 3 steps to be from the center line completely off the road, like way off the road.
Yeah. Well, that is interesting about the energy plants. There could be a connection there. There's a lot of people that mention that they follow the power line strips and that they can manipulate energy, all kinds of strange theories. But it always seems like whenever people see them, they take off really fast. And sometimes they act like the people aren't even watching them, like they never got seen.
That's what happened on the 5 highway. It's like that thing didn't even it didn't care that we were there. It was like it didn't care that we were standing there looking at it. Like it just kind of like, all right, whatever, and walked off. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen before in my life.
Mm-hmm. And did you get out of the vehicle whenever you saw the creature, or was it the other guy on the opposite end?
We both did.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I stepped out of the car. I had a pistol in my hand. I had my service pistol on my side. It's Missouri state law. If you're law enforcement, when you go somewhere, you have to carry a weapon and your badge. That's Missouri state law. And that's what I did.
Yeah, it's a good thing the creature picked up the deer and took off rather than getting violent.
But I've got to get going. I'm late for work.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time, sir, and your
Do you have any
willingness
more
to
questions? Yeah, if you have any more questions, just call me or text me.
Okay. Sounds good. You
All right.
have a good one.
All right. You too, bud.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, thank you very much for getting in contact with me and openly sharing your Bigfoot encounter. And I'm not so sure if it was a Bigfoot. There are other cryptids out there other than Bigfoot and Dogman. I guess there's like different types of Sasquatch. I interviewed somebody from Missouri a while back when I first started the channel, and he claims he saw like a bear creature upright, and people called it a gugway. But it's really hard to determine what these things are, where they come from, and why they get caught in the open sometimes. I would like to believe these are physical creatures living out in the forest just because of the evidence that, let's say, Sasquatch leaves behind. But as far as all the other cryptids, it's hard to determine what it really is. The last sheriff I interviewed from St. Clair, who had an encounter near the Little Indian Creek area, was very hesitant to share his encounter, and he was quick to get off the phone as well. So it's typical, and I wish we could get more details out of the story, but yeah, I appreciate your time nonetheless, and I'm glad you were willing to record your encounter and let everybody listen to it. Thank you everyone for listening. Take care and be safe.